So welcome to the Cooperative City Dialogues, and we're very, very happy on this lunchtime break that we're taking together to be with Florencia Andreola and with Azzurra Muzzonigro, who are the authors of the book Səx the City. So welcome. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Thank you.
So you're both speaking to us from different rooms in Milan. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the marvelous, chances that COVID gives us as a, as a gift.
Lovely.
It means that we basically are in the same house but in different rooms, just as an extra safety measure.
Yeah, also to make it a bit nicer that who's following us can also see your faces without the mask. So that's
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah,
lovely.
Exactly.
So we're very happy to be together because we are. You just published your new book, and there's on a very, very pressing issue. And so I'd like you to explain to the people that are following us, what is Səx and the City?
Okay, I'll just start. Just saying, a few words about how we got together and how we started this adventure. So basically, it was 2 years ago that we decided to participate to this open call by the Urban Center in Milan, which is, let's say, a think tank on urban transformation that is led by the municipality of Milan and the Triennale Milano. So they were basically asking, to propose both a public program and a research project in a quite free way, in the sense that we had the freedom to choose whatever topic we thought it was urgent and interesting to tackle. So we came up with this project, which is that we called Səx and the City, which aim is basically to overlap urban studies and gender studies, and to observe in particular the city of Milan with these lenses. So observing what the city has to offer in terms of services, networks, infrastructures, to the different needs of women and gender minorities. So what the results of this research that we have been leading for 2 years now is this book that is called the Milan Gender Atlas, and that you can find now in libraries and online, which again is basically the main findings of these 2 years of research on Milan.
Okay. So thanks, Azzurra. And so can you tell us a little bit, a step backwards? So why do you think it was important to have a gender atlas? Why did you decide that this was really the thing to concentrate on in this moment?
Well, okay, I'm going to answer this. Well, we are architects, so our intention was to relate gender issues with the topic of the city, with the topic of the geography also. And we thought that mapping services and in general what the city offers to women and gender minorities could be a very significant activity because the result is really helpful to actually evaluate the status of that specific thing you're mapping in a very immediate way, because you can see it in the map, no? But the atlas is not just about mapping, and so it's not just about having a visual idea about the density and the distribution of services, but it's also about understanding the condition of a city, starting from data. We asked a lot of people, we asked a lot of data, to obtain, this mapping. But we also listened to people's experiences. So it's an atlas which is not just about like putting in a map services and things, but it's also trying to have a more general panorama, how do you say, landscape about the topic. And in this way, you can really understand where are the problems, no? What kind of policies you should activate, which areas of the city are more demanding, for what topic, etc. So we thought that having a gender atlas was very very immediate, the result you obtain.
And so related to this, can you tell us a little bit, some examples? What did you come across? What did you find?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. First of all, maybe just to, give a bit of a spatial idea what Florencia was talking about. This is, the map, that the whole atlas, all together, all the layers all together. And then let's say each chapter tries to unpack, in different layers of services. So then you can find one by one each of the things you see all together in the atlas. So just to give you a bit of an idea of the spatial outcome that we came out with. And let's say about the concrete examples, I would say, so first of all, we have observed the city through different lenses, okay, related to the needs of gender, of so there is a whole thing about the use of the city, so the different uses according to the gender of the city, of the services, of the transportation, and so on. So for example, on this level of investigation, one thing that I think was interesting is that you see, and this was through our survey, as Florencia was saying, it's very important to have data. So we came out with a survey in the last spring for the whole citizenship of Milan, to understand if there are different ways of using services and the city, and so on, across genders. So it was quite we already knew, because it is an international trend, but we could actually see the data about how at a certain point of women's life, and let's say that is between the 25 and 35 years old, there is a sudden drop in the data about about going out with friends, and having a social life and so on, and care work just skyrockets high, and that doesn't leave women anymore, because we could think it is about when children come in family, and then after that there is care work about the elderly. And so and this affects women's life a lot, let's say, so, and that changes the way in which women use the city, because care work, let's say, makes or produces segmented, short, local kind of movements, rather than the typical working day, that you go out in the morning, go to work, and then come back in the evening. So, and that's something that comes out by intertwining this way of looking at the city. Another data that maybe is interesting, is because we were looking also at the, let's call it the symbolic level of the city, the public representation of women in the city. And we based this on the data collected by Rete Toponomastica that, show how public representation of women in the city is about, and we're talking about, the toponymy, for example. So how many streets, monuments, statues, and so on are entitled to women. And that data is between 3 and 5% of the total of entitlements. And most of them are saints, martyrs, or in any case, let's say, religious figures, to show, how the public imaginary about the women is very tied to religion. Okay, so and this is quite significant if you want. Then there's many things, but I don't want to take too much time.
That's actually interesting. And you're saying how some are probably trends that we can find globally. Some probably are quite specific to maybe to Milan, maybe to Italy. Can you tell us a bit, one thing that really surprised you throughout the research that was completely unexpected to you?
Well, completely unexpected, maybe. I mean, nothing is really surprising of what we obtained, but despite what Azzurra was telling you now about care work and the differences in women's lives, in Milan, we understood that the trend does not confirm international studies that clearly distinguish aggressive mobility by men, which means private car or motorbike, versus gentle mobility by women, no? Which is bicycle or walking. I mean, in Milan, men and women use both public transportation and their private cars. And also, our research was all developed during the pandemic condition, and so this was very, biased, and it was very difficult to understand really how were people's lives before the pandemics, and so how actually they moved around the city in another condition. Because, of course, with pandemics, a lot of people restarted using private cars, and so this was very different than before. But yeah, this was surprising because we were expecting, that women use more normally bicycle or walking, but instead it's not so obvious. And another thing we discovered, is that young girls in Milan express much more fear than adult women, and also they declared that they have suffered much more harassment in percentage terms. This is explainable in some way by, we think, the instilled fear about strangers, which is given by adults, maybe normally, or parents. Despite, Milan being a fairly safe city, but the other thing about young people is that, for example, they recognize catcalling as an harassment, and not, and this is not recognized like that by older women. We think that also the historical feedback, if I can say that, of people's lives change your idea of the city, because when you're young and everyone is telling you keep attention, don't talk to stranger people, many things can happen to you, and then you arrive to that you are 60 years old and nothing happened to you. You can say, yeah, the city is safer than they said, no? But when you're young, you think that everything can happen to you. And yeah, it was really interesting to see these generational differences be expressed, no, in daily life in people. But yeah, I don't know. I have not many more ideas about what surprised us. Maybe Azzurra, you have some more idea.
We don't hear you, Azzurra.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, maybe I would have said maybe the same thing that Florencia was mentioning, about how data on Milan actually did not follow international trends about mobility, and we were expecting so, but this was not that true. But maybe it's because, somehow the public transportation in Milan, we could say, is quite good. So we could see that both gender used to use a lot both the let's say the metropolitan line and the trains and the buses and so on. And so then also about violence, but that's not surprising at all. There is a huge difference in how women and men and gender minority feel harassed. Of course, there is like I don't know, like this about women and like this about men, and we could think that that little percentage of men could be homosexual men, perhaps. So yeah, I would say those things as well.
It's interesting also how, well, definitely also the map that you showed us and all the layers and the sort of preview and the snippets of the book. That's very interesting. And also because you're talking about Milan and the European trends, and we know that you visited and you looked into also other cities, I think namely Barcelona and Vienna, if I'm correct. What do you see are a little bit the main differences that you see between the countries? It's a huge question, I realize, but if you could give us a couple of hints, that would be great.
I mean, they're basically, Vienna is at least 20 years, or even no, it's 30 years ahead of us, in the sense that they started looking at this issue at the beginning of the 90s. And there is this figure in particular who is Eva Keil, who has been, the head of a planning office for, I think, 30 years now. And she has been, pushing on the gender mainstreaming in Vienna for the past 30 years. So, this kind of approach to the city has produced in Vienna concrete projects, not only, she has been starting with some pilot projects on public space and so on, but then she was able to push the agenda to the point to produce entire pieces of the city based on these principles. So like, there are at least 3, but even more neighborhoods that were built according to these principles. And I'm referring to the different stages of the Frauenwerkstatt project. So it's the first was in the 90s, then there was a second in the beginning of the 2000, then in 2010, and now there is another one that is being built right now, and we went to visit the construction site. So this means, that this kind of approach has led to actually, produce policies and produce a way of actually building the city. So Vienna is the mecca for this kind of approach, for sure. On the other hand, we went to visit Barcelona, and there as well, let's say, starting with Ada Colau. Ada Colau started to invest a lot on this. She believes in it, and she, is starting to structure her administration in a very with a very strong gender mainstreaming approach. So gender mainstreaming is across the whole administrative body, and it's funded by all the public departments. This means that you guarantee, that all public policies come out are respecting the gender, let's say, indexes. And with the feeling I think we had going to Barcelona is that there is a very young and very determined people there in the machine. So they have a lot of energy and they're pushing a lot. So on the one hand, Vienna is the most established, the most historical, the most consolidated experience, the one that everyone, I think, looks at. And on the other hand, Barcelona is very much, on the spot. This is very much running in that direction. And I think, a mix between the two could be very inspiring for us as well. Can you hear me?
Okay. Last sentence, I actually had some hiccups. I don't know if it was just me. Could you just repeat the last phrase?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was just saying, that the mix of Vienna and Barcelona, I think, could be very inspiring for us, because one is very consolidated experience, the other has a lot of energy and push, and we could learn from both experience a lot to, kind of really establish an approach in a public administration.
Yeah. So one thing is that I find very interesting about also the stories of Vienna and Barcelona is also the political and the administrative commitment. So it starts from a political push that is not just from the elected, but from the base that brought them to the elections. But also that the administration in itself, the city, takes on board this across departments and so on. And I think this is probably something that we don't see that much. It's not just an issue about maybe fringes of social policies that are looking into gender, as it currently, I think, is in the best cases in many cities, but it really goes across all departments, even, environment, mobility, which might not necessarily come to mind as a gender perspective as a first thing. So that's, I think, one interesting element. As you saw, there was some comments coming also from the audience, and we answered in the meantime, like who were the reference people. That was Eva Keil from Vienna. If anybody who's listening has any additional comments and questions to Azzurra and Florencia, just type in, because we receive them here on this on our stream platform. So feel free. There was also a comment which I found quite funny, that somebody found it quite nice to have Vienna as the Mecca. They enjoyed it, and somebody else shared also some links also to the experience from Barcelona. So whoever wants also can also get into that. But obviously, especially for Italian speakers, there will be the book that we will get onto next. So now you've come out to the book, and we'll get there soon, but what's next? Well, you've reached you're presenting the book, we've seen you're having a lot of debates, especially in Milan. There's opening up a lot of space around this very important topic. What do you see are the next steps that Səx and the City will be taking?
Maybe you forgot one question.
No, that's okay. We can go there first.
Okay, we can answer this.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, Azzurra is going to continue talking because I didn't prepare this answer.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Florencia, you can tell me what was. So you can see it's not all spontaneous, and the questions were prepared just for the audience to know. That's always good anyway. So apologies for that. Actually, Florencia, then forgive me. I don't remember what I was supposed to ask you. Apologize for that. So you're going to have to give yourself the question and the answer.
Okay, as you want. Otherwise, I can write it down in private.
Go.
No, you asked us.
I'll make the question.
Go, Azzurra, you make the question.
Based on our findings, what needs to change in our cities?
You
Very
remember
good.
that you wanted to know it.
That's very good. That sounds like a good question. Go ahead.
Very good question, yeah. Yeah, even if, no, I don't think it's a very good question, because I think that every city has its own problems and its own issues to solve. So, I mean, we observed Milan and discovered that, for example, in many specific areas, women don't feel safe. And in this sense, we have to understand why, no? Which are the effective problems of those areas. Or also, we discovered that our city has a lot of kindergarten, but they are so expensive that only someone can actually pay for it. So Milan has many specific problems, but these are not the problems of our cities, but these are Milan's problems. And we think that analyzing the cities is the most important part of the job to be done, because if you don't know which are the specific needs of your city, you will just offer, how to say, maybe like a vision, no, but not an answer to the real needs. So we really think that there are no general problems. There are very specific problems, and it's very important to ask people how they are, what they want, what they need, and only in this way. And if you read how Vienna, for example, organize their projects, their projects are always based on analysis which are always in a neighborhood scale. We maybe arrived to the conclusion that thinking about a city in a total dimension, I mean, about all Milan, could be quite useless, because Milan is very different in its different parts, and so you have to try to understand how the neighborhoods work and how people actually feel living there and what they need. So this was the question and the answer. So now we can talk about what's next for Səx the City.
And no, it's good that we address this also, because also we see like this also what are the approaches. There's been so much discussion about the neighborhood scale and the 15-minute city throughout COVID. And I think there's been a lot of attention on the local services, but to think also about how that can also be a plan. It could be the opportunity that, given there's been also attention for this neighborhood scale aside of the gender dimension, it might be also the opportunity, we hope, to also bring this dimension forward. Azzurra, then at this point, the question to you would be, what is next for Səx in the City?
That's fantastic. Okay, so so now this book somehow is out, and we hope that we will, through the book, be able to get on one side to the public administration in Milan to try to really be concrete about what we're saying, and give and start a season of projects. So following the steps that we said about Vienna, start to do some pilot project, actually put into practice of this theory that we are talking about. So on one side, is this idea to establish, we can discuss whether it is an observatory, whether it is a department or whatever it is, that is inside the public administration, and that does, and that puts into practice all of this. So this, let's say, so we would say it's getting deeper into Milan. So going in a step 2 of putting into practice and start to do, for example, squares. And we could do a pilot project on a square soon, and so on. On the other hand, we could, also discuss with other cities about this and see, for example, even it would be really interesting to work in a city, a bigger scale like Rome, for example, to see the differences. That would give a lot of, depth, I would say, to this kind of research, because then you could see differences about how different cities behave in this regard. And also smaller cities, I'm thinking, I don't know, also Florence or Parma or Lecce, this could be, it could be a really interesting also network on a national level. And on the other side, I think I like to think that there is a double movement, So one movement is zoom in, so going into practice in a small scale project, and on the other hand is a zoom out, so try to get into networks at the European level. So that's why it's really interesting, this conversation that we're having today, because Cooperative City and Eutropian also, you are also working and based in Vienna. So to get into networks at the European level and try to tackle European policies as well, and show that a common approach, let's say common base, is very useful. Then, of course, respecting differences, and then each city, of course, has its own peculiarities, and therefore, then you decline somehow with the local approach. But if you have a common chart, I don't know, a common values that you share, then you can act in a network. Somehow, I like to say that on gender there should be the same approach that there is now on climate, if you want. There is this network of the C40. I don't know if you are aware of it. That somehow is a common chart of values, and then each city has their own principles based on the local peculiarities, and that gives the way to a whole set of planning sites, and then therefore so something like this I think is a good model also for a gender issue. So pilot projects at the local scale and European networks, I would say, is the synthetic answer.
Yeah, sharing practices, I think, would be very important, because many things have been done in Europe and also in other places, and it's important, I mean, to know how they worked, what kind of results they had, and if they work, why not? I mean, when we understand which are our problems, we will discover, of course, that we are not the first having that problem. So I mean, sharing practices, I think, could be very important in this moment.
And that's why we're very happy to have you here with the Cooperative City. That's what we try to do, is really share the experiences from around Europe. The good of digital is also you can have maybe also somebody from outside of Europe who might be listening to us right now. So we invite, in these last minutes we have for today with Azzurra and Florencia, if there's anybody who would like to also maybe share anything that is happening in their cities, or anything else that is that they think that rings a bell from what Azzurra and Florencia, they want to start up this European network. I think this could be a good opportunity for opening up this discussion. Heading towards the end, the discussion was triggered by your new book. So actually, the question would be, where does our audience get your book?
Well, it's quite easy. Yeah, to be clear, maybe someone didn't understand that the book is both in Italian and in English, and it's very important for us because we didn't want to make it just local, even if it's a book about Milan, so it's local in a way. But yeah, you can find it more or less wherever you want. I mean, it's in many libraries now, particularly Milan, of course. But you can find it on the publisher website, which is for us better than Amazon, which has it, but you can maybe choose another way. Anyways, we have it on Amazon, of course, and now we are going with a new print of the book already. So it's going to be around for some time, we think, and we hope it will be interesting for you to read it and to be aware of what we wanted to share with you.
And meanwhile, we start getting already some first inputs. So we get from Helen Gallis from Nabloxhag. I'm afraid my pronunciation will not be very good, from Oslo. They thank you for the inspiration and look forward to working together on this important topic. So all contacts are on the social media, and we hope that this triggers a lot more discussion further. So we're very happy about this. And this, we're very happy also that from comments I saw from Vienna, I think from Spain, and also from Oslo. I think that's really what we try to do, to bring different people that share values from around different places, because that's what we need to do, is work together towards making real change, starting from our cities, but to improve really our democracy. And with this, I would really like to thank you, Azzurra and Florencia. It would be a pleasure to stay on for long chats, and I think maybe what we will do is soon have another catch up. Maybe we can organize a discussion, maybe having an exchange with other cities as well, and knowing about the follow-up of what happened in Milan. So please keep us posted on what's happening, because we really enjoyed this chat, and we wish you the best with the follow-up and the promotion of the book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was very nice to be here.
Super. Let's stay in touch soon.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic lunch break and speak to you soon. And for those who are listening to us, we will be again with Cooperative City Dialogues again here in 2 weeks' time, sharing another experience of cooperative models from around Europe. So stay tuned and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.